Hello and welcome to the Results of Ronnie podcast series. I am your host, Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Relationships, Dating, and Sex. And today we're going to talk about sex. Great sex, good sex, better sex, exceptional sex. This is going to be one for the books. Even to the point where I decided that I'm going to do more than one podcast on this particular subject because there's just so much to cover. More the clinical part, then you have the fantasy part. Look, you do know, even before I even say it, there's definitely levels to this. But before I go on, I just want to let you know that this series is sponsored by Balanced by Diana J, a platform on YouTube and Facebook where some of the interviews, I tell you, they are definitely noteworthy. And she covers everything from spirituality, relationships, dating, and of course, sex. Diana J, the host, let me tell you something, she is definitely worth your time listening to, and you will also enjoy the quality of guests that she have on the show as well. So take a listen, Balanced with Diana J on YouTube. I also want you to take a minute to subscribe to the Miss Relationship Man podcast series and also hit the notification bell that whenever I drop a new podcast, you're already ahead of the curve. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, you would think that everybody knows what it takes to have exceptional sex. And based on who you ask, they all think that they do. However, if you ask their partner, they may not get the same answer or a truthful one. Now, to be fair, you'll have couples that feel they are having exceptional sex. But let me ask you something. Who's to say that you couldn't even take it to another level? And if that is the case, why not try? Well, I think it's worth it. As I've said many times in my podcasts, on my Facebook posts, and even Instagram, where I talk about in the world of relationships, it's either growing or dying. And one of those parts, of course, is sex. I am not one to sit here and tell you that sex is not that important in a relationship. And I guarantee you that if you ask enough people, you will find that many couples, and I will also go so far as to say most couples, will tell you that sex is very important in a relationship for many reasons. But we're not talking about sex for just the sake of sex. It is what represents for the man and for the woman. So, what are the components to having exceptional sex? Well, I'm going to give you a few, and I'm sure that as you tune in and listen in, you may have some that you never thought of before, and some that you may even want to add to what I'm sharing with you. And like I said, this is not a definite list. I'm definitely going to provide you some other episodes in which I'll add on to that and add the other layers to this. But in the world of relationships, if it's not growing, it's dying. And in the space and energy of sexual intercourse, you definitely want to be in a space where you both are growing. And how do you do that? Because you will find many couples, when you talk about that, they will say, oh, they're fine, they're good, but you also find many couples on cruise control, which means they both know what they like and they get the job done. But then what tends to happen is that I'll get that phone call from a couple, and one of them, either the girl or the guy, where they really want to try something new. They want to go to another level, but yet they don't know how to communicate to that spouse. Well, what do? There are many things you could do. But first, let's make sure you both are on the same page when we're talking about exceptional sex. What it means for him, what it means for her. And let's set a foundation on what that looks like. Number one, remember that sex, as I said, is not more so something you do, but a place you go. Now, many people will interpret that to say that this is why they think sex is very spiritual, because it's reaching a higher plane mentally, physically, and some will then say spiritually. It is the closest thing that they will experience leaving the body, if you will, because of the closeness, the intimacy with this person, a space where they feel the most vulnerable. You hear many men and women speak in very metaphysical, abstract ways in which they're talking about sex. Some will get it, some won't. But I think if you really dive into it, you will find that sex is more than just an act. Let me give you another pointer in having better sex. You want to master intimacy. And what does that use? Because everyone has a different definition. So foundationally, you want to look at intimacy as a close familiarity, a closeness. And it can be something as intense as looking in each other's eyes across the room at a cocktail party. For some, it's a slap on the girlfriend's behind. Or on the guy's behind, for that matter, the boyfriend's behind. It's interesting. It could just be the touch as you walk past each other, holding hands. It could just be as you're watching TV and her feet are on your lap. It could be massaging the scalp of each other. You're both familiar with each other. You're both close. Learn to master intimacy. And men, let me reach out to you because, of course, a lot of what I speak to is geared toward men taking the leadership space in a relationship. I do believe in the safety and the consent of a woman. So whatever it is that she feels that allows her to be closer to you, provide that space for her. Learn her spots, whatever they may be. And if you're curious, experiment. If you don't want to ask. But if you want to ask, ask. Which leads me to the other point. Ladies and gentlemen, get educated about each other. And that means communicate. Effective communication. And by that I mean tell each other the truth. Get to know each other. You want to get to that space where the sex is just so fluid and intoxicating. It's in a space where you know each other and you trust each other. A space of knowing that this person has your best interest in this space at heart. I can't tell you how important it is to be educated about each other. Now, I did touch on this before, but ladies and gentlemen, master the art of touch. Now, I know I spoke to the men and what it took for the women in finding erogenous zones, what it took for her to feel and smile, to look at you in that way that lets you know that she's welcoming you into her space. Well, ladies, find out what that is for the man. Men will let you know. And if you don't want to ask, experiment. Notice the body language. If it's something that he's not feeling, he'll let you know. But have patience in this space, because I do find when I speak to couples, this is a space you don't want to rush. Touch is extremely powerful. And I truly find that far too many men and women underestimate this space. You really need to master the art of touch. Now, I could give you much more clinical reasons as to why you need to do this, but I'll save that for another podcast. I really don't want to bog you down with a bunch of numbers. But I will provide, at some later date, some testimonies of how things changed once he mastered his touch on her. How he felt when she touched him in places that he didn't think existed anymore. That's a beautiful thing. The power of touch is a beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen. Also, be honest about what you like and want in the space of intimacy and sex. You'd be surprised of how many men and women are fearful of letting their partner know what they really like. You'd also be surprised that what you thought you were saving your partner from is something they thought that they were saving you from, and you both like the same thing, but for whatever the reason is, you both were not forthcoming. And then you find this out 3, 4, 5 years into a relationship when you could have had 3, 4, 5 years of next level sex because you both held out on each other. And this is why we're talking about getting educated about each other and being honest. That effective communication is key. Also, if you need therapy in this space and you want your sex to go to the next level, go seek therapy. Some of you are not experiencing the level of sex that you are, and you're just going through motions of quiet desperation because you have not addressed what needs to be addressed and dealt with, and whatever that may be. And it could be a sexual trauma, it could be whatever it may be, but you know deep down if there's something that you need to deal with to take your relationship, and in the case of this subject, incredible sex, then you may have need some therapy. So getting educated about each other, know that being educated about yourself is important, because this is a space that, again, you don't want to shortchange your partner, and more importantly, you don't want to shortchange yourself. So I can't stress it enough. It's not glamorous, but I can assure you it's worth it. So seek the therapy you need if that is a space you have to address in order to take your sex with your partner to a next level. Also, make time available for good sex. Make even more time available for exceptional sex. You don't always have to rush in. I get the beauty of a quickie, just like anybody else. I understand it. There is just a science in that when you know that maybe you woke up a little later than you anticipated and you wanted to get a little something before you went to work, for those morning people. Or you want to get a little in just before you go to bed. And we all know how great orgasm helps you sleep better. And it also adds a closeness. There's also some intimacy in there. But make time. And not just when you're on vacation. If you have kids, especially make time. Recharge. Don't keep yourself in mommy and daddy mode all the time. Make time for exceptional sex. So if that means a babysitter, dropping them off at the sitters, whatever it may be, make time for each other. Make time for each other to have exceptional sex. Now, we all would like to a perfect world have it so fluid and spontaneous, but sometimes that's not the case. So please make sure you make the time. Also, learn to experiment. I don't know why this is something that, or even how we got to a place where couples are not experimenting. Now, here's the thing. I speak to men and women of various generations. And of course, the younger ones are in the experimental phase. But even then, sometimes they all don't know what they're doing. But at the very least, they are trying. But for my older, more experienced men and women, don't discount revisiting some of the things that you used to do or trying new things. I get it. Sometimes maybe you wouldn't feel the same, or some of you fear some kind of, will he respect me in the morning? But again, now we're back to effective communication, expressing what you're curious about. And here's the beautiful thing about all of this. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. And if you do, you get to do it over and over and over again. But what the hell? What really do you have to lose by experimenting? You find out something that you've been denying yourself for many years. Or you find out, hell, this wasn't for me. But at least you've done it. And see, there's a form of intimacy and closeness in that you both have trusted each other to go try something new. And you really need to see the beauty in that. I think it's a great thing to do. So learn to experiment. Ladies and gentlemen, learn to meet each other's needs. Far too many men and women go into sex with a very selfish mindset. And, sometimes they fear that they're not going to get theirs. And of course, that can lead to something deeper, and this is where coaching and therapy comes in. But find out what turns her on. Find out what turns him on. Sometimes everything that you bought from your last relationship may not do it for the new partner. And so now you've walked down the aisle and you're on that honeymoon, and here you are, thinking that you are the master, that you are the master coach of exceptional sex, only to find out that your lovely partner isn't satisfied in the way you anticipated. And that can start a whole nother conversation on a honeymoon. A very expensive honeymoon after probably a very expensive wedding. But start out knowing that you're going in there to meet her needs. Going there knowing that you're going to meet his needs. And if you two are the right people, that will be no problem at all. Here's another thing, and I get a lot of debate about this, and this is, if you speak to couples who have exceptional sex, if you're so privileged to speak to these people and they're sharing their stories, you'll find that porn is not on the table. Now, that's not to say that sometimes there's some couples that in the space of experimentation, they may experience it for the first time together. But really, porn doesn't play a bigger part in healthy sex relationships as many would believe. You see, the challenge with porn is that it sets up a lot of unrealistic expectations. If you want to find out why certain men and women are addicted to porn, well, one of the reasons is that, you see, the thing about porn, so speaking from a man's point of view, one of the things is that you'll find that porn never says no. See, to porn, it's always ready when you're ready. Doesn't have a headache, doesn't have to deal with a monthly, doesn't have to deal with menopause. You have variety. It's always there when you're there. You're always Big Papa to the lady on the on the screen. You're never too small, you're never too big. You're always just right. And it takes you away from the reality of dealing with real people. It puts you in a space of not appreciating the person who's really has your best interest at heart. And instead you're thinking of someone on the screen who doesn't even know you exist. But that's, again, going down another avenue and another conversation. But again, you will find healthy couples that are having healthy, exceptional sex. You don't hear them talk about porn, as many people would think. Exceptional sex also accepts that it's not always about the orgasm. Now, of course, I can sit here and give you a whole nother podcast on the benefits of orgasms. And I think now that I've said that, that's something I'm going to cover. We're just going to talk about orgasms. Maybe I'll have some people up and we'll talk about that. But for the sake of this episode, in many cases, the intercourse is about just the closeness. It's being able to look in each other's eyes and say, I love you at the same time. It's about the touch, the caress, the kiss. It's about just feeling him. It's about feeling her. It's about the intensity. And maybe you want to take each other there and you're almost so close and you stop. And you start again. And maybe you both dislike creating the crescendo, but don't really want to go over the top and having the full-blown orgasm. There's an excitement in that as well. It's not always about the orgasm. Sometimes she just wants to feel you. Sometimes he just needs a confirmation. Words of affirmation. The gift of the touch. That he feels. That you feel him. But then again, sometimes it is about the orgasm. And if that's the space that you're in, have them over and over and over. Because there's nothing like passing out on the bed from having as many orgasms as you both have. That's beautiful. Either way, it's beautiful. But last but not least, and here is something that I purposely put at the end because this is very, very important. Exceptional sex happens with people who exercise and eat good food. I cannot say enough how food and eating well and exercise plays into exceptional sex. Now, there are those who think that because they're having exceptional sex now, there's no need to exercise. Trust me, exercise and eating better will take your level of sex to places, well, hell, you probably didn't experience when you first, on the honeymoon. I believe sex is very important. And I believe it's important enough that if you're not having it to the point where you feel it's exceptional, then exercise will certainly play a part in putting you in that right direction and eating well. And hell, we all know that we're all guilty of not exercising enough, eating eggs because we should as well. So, with that being said, exercise, exercise, exercise. You want to talk about some incredible sex? Exercise. Well, I think I'm going to end the podcast here, at least this very episode, and hope that you've gotten some value out of what I've shared. And if you have some questions, you can email me at resultswithronnie@gmail.com. That resultswithronnie@gmail.com. I'm sorry, resultswithronnie@gmail.com. That is resultswithronnie@gmail.com. Again, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that whenever a new podcast episode comes in, you will be the first to get it. My name is Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Relationships and Sex. Feel free to reach out if you would like to share this podcast with others. You can go to MrRelationshipMan.com. That's MrRelationshipMan.com for consultation and coaching. Results with Ronnie. Again, for coaching and consultation, you can go to Results with Ronnie and put your name and address or name and phone number so I can contact you. And the best time to contact you, and I'll reach out to you, and we can go over what we need to do to get you to have exceptional dating, take your relationship to the next level, and exceptional sex. Again, I thank you for your time to tuning in, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. My name, Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Dating, Relationships, and Sex, and I wish you all a very, very good night, and of course, I wish you exceptional sex. Until again.